question again, who cares? And I think everyone in this call does care. And what we would like to do today, what we want to try and achieve today, is that we increase the motivation, we increase the passion even more, so collectively we can drive change. And the timing is now. Building professionals are seeking advice. They're looking for information, they're looking for direction. In my day job, I get the opportunity to talk to a lot of architects, and they are really asking how can they integrate fire resilience into sustainability. So within the European fire safety community and Fire Safe Europe, we're working on several projects to try and help that journey along. One is the fire safety rating scheme for buildings. The other one is the Fire Information Exchange platform. Here we're collecting data on fire safety. We're doing a lot of work on facade fire safety. How do we assess performance? How do we test the facades? How do we know they're fit for purpose for the type of buildings they're being used in? And lastly, fire safety data and research. So the European fire safety community is a place where we can all share our ideas. We can build coalitions, we can connect with people with the same passions. And there's 800 people in the community today, many of those living fire safety every day. So please share your projects, share your questions, share your expertise so we can build a center for networking, for experience, for knowledge on fire safety in buildings. We need the community to grow. We need to be able to show regulators and politicians what is happening, to show things are moving and to show that we can support their legislation to make buildings safer from fire as well as more sustainable. So together we can be stronger, and together we can be the voice of fire safety in buildings. So those are the core messages that I wanted to get across in this introduction. And I wish you then really, really interesting discussions as you move out into the breakout sessions shortly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul, for this really great introduction. Now, what we are going to do, I'm inviting you to stay and listen to my colleague, Nicole Rodolphe, and Miroslav Smolka. First, Rodolphe will start presenting the open fire safety community, and he will be followed by Miroslav. I let you, should we test your sound?
Rodolphe? Yes, good afternoon to all.
Good afternoon, and I leave you the floor.
Thank you, Juliette. Thank you, Paul. So good afternoon to all of you. I'm super pleased to be with you this afternoon for many reasons. First of all, because it's a great opportunity for me to testify about how I use the community, because I joined Fire Safe Europe early this year. And this tool has been extremely useful for me for many, many reasons. So we're going to be happy to make an update about the community in itself, first with my colleague, Miroslav Smolka, who is our technical director. And we will make also two focuses on the two of our main, I would say, bestsellers or main products that we are working on with you. It's the fire safety rating scheme and also the comparative study of national fire safety requirements. I have the remote control, so everything now works perfectly. So I'm going to move into the presentation on this basis, on these 3 points I just mentioned, and start immediately with the community in itself. Why? Because, well, it's once upon a time story, you know, as all the, I would say, the good stories start with. It's almost an anniversary because this community has been officially launched on the 4th of November 2019. So you're quite, I think, familiar with the web page in itself, because if you're here, it's because you are already a member or you have been through that web page. And it's definitely a great achievement for all of us in less than 2 years to be here all together with you. The main question was definitely why a European fire safety community was needed at that time. For obvious reasons, we had plenty of them actually, because lives are changing, the way we build as well is changing. The fact that we are also spending 90% of our time into indoor environments means a lot and change a lot. So the idea behind that was to say we all have a piece of this puzzle, which is big, become bigger and bigger every day, and we need to learn from each other. So in another way to be sure that your expertise can be used, but also transformed into very concrete actions. So behind this European fire safety community, which is open to all, the idea was to connect, to develop the knowledge, and also, I think the most important piece of that, to work collaboratively on solutions. The three pillars, I would say, on which we have developed, and I would like to definitely thank my colleagues, Bianca, Lila, Jérôme, and Sarah, who has been behind this community and all the work that you cannot necessarily see, but on a daily basis, they are the magicians. So the three pillars we have, it's definitely those three: an information hub, a unique and participative network, and a policy framing hive. I really like the policy framing hive because I'm in charge of public affairs, and I can really testify that I'm using this a lot by sharing information through the community, but also by receiving some connections with different stakeholders, like the little bit that we are gathering and aggregating some information. On the different community activities and services that you're probably familiar with already. I mean, you already received a lot, and you will receive probably more, and we'll still have a lot of things coming within the next coming 2 months before the year end. Here we are talking about exclusive interviews from MEPs, for instance, podcasts and webinars from different fire safety experts. We're going to have one dedicated to facade, for instance, on the 9th of December. We also are able to develop some intelligence on legislations, regulation, but not only, because we have more and more discussion regarding fire tests. We are developing and we are pushing, and we are really proud of that, this is also a network for researchers and engineers. We saw that many of them put some questionnaires on the network and received some answer back and so on. So it's really moving up, and it's getting up in the right direction. And the main idea behind that is also always the same. It's an holistic and collaborative solutions to improve building fire safety in general. You are, I think, also quite familiar with the features that we can find. You can see all of them here if you are navigating on a regular basis on our website. You have the live feed, the forum, the who's, the news, the events, the different resources, the companies directory, which is used a lot. We are receiving a lot of calls from companies from the different European member states, and sometimes outside of the European unions, asking for being in touch or connected to companies that could be of interest regarding different market, different solutions or technology. So it's super interesting to have such a directory with us. You can see, and you're already familiar with eufiresafety.community/, which is a web address where we can find all the information that you need to understand what we're doing with that support and platform. I want to also make a focus on definitely the advisory panels content, because we have 4 main, I would say, advisory panels with us, dedicated to the 4 topics that you can see here on data collection, on smoke toxicity, on facade, and on sustainable building advisory panel as well. It's very important to register to those panels if you're interested, because they are kind of smaller communities into the community in itself. And this is where, if you're really interested or focusing on those aspects, on those topics, that we can exchange with peers which definitely share the same kind of interest with you. So this is where we can find a lot of, I would say, extra information, and this is also where we can nourish the different approach we could have on this topic. And that led me to explain to you very briefly how many people are we. And within a 2-year period of time, it's wonderful, because we are above 800 fire safety experts into that community. You're perfectly aware that it's completely open to all on an individual basis. You can definitely register to the different advisory panels and options that I already mentioned. And we observed very interesting things through the community. People from India talking with people in the US, people from Middle East talking with Asia, and so on. So it's very interesting. A lot of questions as well on the European members' fire safety regulations, not well, few days ago, we were discussing, for instance, with Italian authorities on this basis. So it's super interesting to see that it's growing fast and in the right direction. And the more we will be, as it has been pointed out by our President Paul Langford, the best it will be at the end. We are really here to make the dynamic in the right direction, and it is going into this right direction. And so I'm really proud of this. The main idea was also to understand regarding the community members profile. And it's also very interesting to see what is the current situation, because we have a big quarter of corporate representatives, another quarter from fire engineers, sorry, but we also have growing profiles, I would say, from academia, as I was saying, more than 10%, from firefighters as well, also from smaller, stakeholders, but more and more interested by the topic in itself, coming from the national authorities, but also from different policymakers, including different members of the European Parliament and association, not only at European level, but also at international level. So it's really encouraging for all of us. It's also I think the interest of such a community to have this diversity and variety of stakeholders from the value chain, because we are able to connect people among these different activities, and it's really a place where we can increase our knowledge, our networks, and also the actions that we can put into the different part of our work. Definitely, you know the website in itself. We also have an app. You can find this app. And you can download the application from one of the online stores. You know about them, Google or App Store. I let you go there and to have this app on your cell phone if it's of interest for you to work and to be in touch and directly with us every day, everywhere. That's it for the community update in itself. I think you will find more information not only in the lobby but also on our website. And I really encourage you to be in touch with us, to continue that, to ask questions like you used to do, to react on the different newsletters or information that you are receiving, to share also about your projects. I think this is one of the main interests for all of us, is to be aware, to be informed of what's going on, to understand what the others are doing, what we can do together. And it's definitely an improvement regarding the fire safeties in building in Europe and in different national levels. For that, we have two big, I would say, bestseller in a way, or a product of interest that we would like to do a focus on. It's a fire safety rating scheme first, and second part will be dedicated to the comparative study of national fire safety requirements. And this is my colleague that's going to make this part. So I'm super happy and proud to talk about this fire safety rating scheme for an obvious reason. A lot of policymakers that I've been in discussion with, but also investors, told me that it was definitely needed. So it's definitely something that they're looking for, that they're interested in, and they would like to see happening in the close future. It's a big piece of work, definitely, but it's a very, I would say, promising work, and I hope that we'll be able to develop something in a very, I would say, close timeline or short timeline to move on in the right direction. But I also hope that we're going to be able to aggregate all the people interested by the subject. So everything is still very open, and if you were interested by the topic in itself, send me an email through the community or directly, and we will discuss about that. The good news is that we have started, and thanks to you, we have started the work. We have 3 work packages launched now. We have more than 9 group calls, actually, more than that, especially because we also have a lot of individual calls at every hours of the day, because we had people in Australia, people in the US, a bit everywhere that were interested to participate. So thank you very much to all of them. We have more than 35 community members involved on a regular basis. We are more than that, but I wanted to insist on those who are really there at every calls, doing the work with us and so on. So thank you again to this group of people. And we have been able to assemble a high-level steering group with people coming from an FPA, from ARUP, and IFSS, for instance. And there are definitely people super helpful for us to check our ideas, to discuss about what could be the different developments in different directions that we could explore, and so on and so on. The work was designed to be based on 4 work packages that you can see here, and we started the 3 first ones on the Tech Fire Safety Hub, which is definitely how to understand the technology can help us to go in the right direction by assembling the appropriate data. We got also a second work package dedicated to building a model fire safety assessment. And here, it's a place where we can have a lot of discussions about what could be the best option for all of us. And for this project in particular. Is that from modeling? Is that from risk assessment? Is that from indexing? And we had a lot of discussions and we met a lot of interesting people, which I'm really happy with because that situation, because those are really valued people that I was super happy to discuss with. And a lot of them will be among our speakers in these different breakout sessions after that. So I really encourage you to hear what they are saying, what they are sharing with us as well, because it's an excellent knowledge in a good way to continue in the right direction again. And the third work package was dedicated on the fire safety model for sustainability rating scheme. It's also super encouraging because we are making a lot of progresses thanks to this WP3, as we call it, work package 3. And we expect to have a more and more discussion, especially with the European Commission and the DG Environment. And I'm going to explain into my presentation why. At the end, although this work may aim to develop a standalone rating scheme dedicated to fire safety, of course, with definitely a transversal issue, which is so important for us and for everybody, I think, to have this in mind is definitely to have the social justice aspect in mind, especially when we see regarding what we have with social housing, for instance, or multiple owner housing. The indicative timeline that we had this year was the following one. We started the calls in March. We have to finalize term of reference to work with all together in a way that could please everyone. Also regarding the availabilities, regarding the content. We had several calls after that. We started to get into the details, into the real work just before the summer break to have a first round of analysis and to develop some papers. We had other calls, and now we are at the summit, and we will try to develop also a progress report for the end of this year, just to understand, because this will be not a one-year project. This will take a bit longer. Of course, that's going to be probably a 3 to 5 years project to really achieve something workable, and we are perfectly aware of that. And even with that kind of timeline, it is considered by a large number of our friends and stakeholders as very ambitious. Here is it. Yes. The triggers of all the work and the discussion were based on those two, I think, very important documents. The first one was the International Fire Safety Standards and its common principles. And the second document was the Fire Safety Challenges of Green Buildings and Attributes, developed by Brian Mitchum and Margaret McNamee, which I'm really happy because she will be one of our moderators today. So we are very privileged and even honored because we used a lot this report. And those triggers were definitely the basis on which we started the discussion. I got Gary Strong from IFSS on a regular basis on this topic, and I think they are really valuable document to go in the right direction. For us, the idea was also to understand what do we want to achieve with that, with this fire safety rating scheme. Do we want to have something resilient and or sustainable, or both? Of course, the idea was definitely to have something resilient and sustainable. This is also the work that we have done through the work package 3. The idea was based on these figures from the Mitchum and McNamee report, to understand in which direction we can go, what we can expect, what kind of data we had, and so on. Why? Because as it has been pointed out by our president, definitely the idea was to integrate fire safety in the sustainability thinking. I mean, sustainability is a big buzzword for a long time. Resilience is there, circularity, another. We hear more and more about sufficiency for the moment, but every time there is no such or good integration of fire safety into it. Despite the fact that we know that as a two statement here, you can see the building's life cycle is not accident-free and fire risks should be accounted for. And the fire safety implication of green buildings materials, technologies and systems should be evaluated when assessing a building's sustainability. So we were super clear on that, and that was one of our bases to move on. Rapidly, we saw that there was a need because, you know, and we can fulfill the slide of many names of those sustainability rating schemes. We know that they are not factoring fire resilience or fire safety for the moment for couple of reasons or impact at the end. There's a big assumption that building regulations are covering fire safety in the right way, which is not true. And there is also absolutely no inclusion so far of the dynamics between the fire safety and resilience and sustainability. So this is why we thought it was a good idea to move into that direction. And we have decided to understand where we can include fire safety. We made the choice of working with levels, first of all, because it has been developed recently by the European Commission and the DG Environment, and also because that was a good exercise to do that, because it's a mainstream frame dedicated to building. So we worked to have, under some of the 6 macro objectives of levels, a different way to put some indicators and to insert some existing indicators dedicated to fire safety. The idea was really, to raise the consideration of fire safety throughout those different reporting, because levels has different kind of 3 kinds of reporting for each of those indicators, but also to understand where we can inoculate a bit of fire safety requirements into it. For that, we get back to the work done by Dr. Mitchum and Professor McNamee to be sure that it was first based on case studies, to understand what can we do with those attributes, what can we do with those hazards, and the different concern levels, but also the different mitigation strategies that we can find, and to adapt those indicators to the levels frame. It's a work which is still in progress, I would say. We have a team of approximately 10 people working on that. The idea are based on those principles and development here. It's definitely to align, but to be also flexible enough to be inserted in some of the certain sustainable rating schemes, and to set up this list of indicators dedicated to fire safety and to put into the rating in itself. Definitely a focus on fire safety hazards linked to the green attributes. It's a certainty. Focus on design stage, a tool, not a regulation, to insert fire safety in the sustainability debate and to steer the industry in a fire safe direction. This is a goal we have, and I think we are working into the right path to achieve that. To finish on my presentation, I took that picture from LinkedIn recently, which was, I think, a good way to illustrate the situation about data, how to sort it out, those data, how to range them, how to explain at the end a story. We have to do a bit of everything at every stage regarding that path. That's clear. And we will see what's going to be the outcomes. But this is where we stand. We are sometimes missing some data. We are sometimes missing some modeling, how to weigh. But we have a clear view on how we want to explain a story at the end and to make building definitely more fire safe. So it's a good, I would say, illustration of where we are. Regarding the next steps, and this is my, not my final slide, but almost the previous one, we have 2 directions. One will be definitely to develop the standalone fire rating scheme in itself, because this is the main goal we have, and this will require more and more research capacities, and we are discussing with a lot of organizations and institutions. So that again, if you are interested by the project, come connect with us and let's see what we can do together. We are at this level of work for the moment. That's definitely one of our goals. The other goal is the one linked to sustainability, to be sure that we can finish this work regarding levels and how to be sure that we can integrate the levels framework, because I think it's quite a promising one. And at the end, and to finish on my presentation, it's always raising awareness and developing more knowledge about the topic in itself. So I wanted to point out 2 recent activities as we are engaged as a Fire Safe Europe organization, but we share the information on the community. It's about the global plan for decade of action for fire safety, just launched by the IFSS. Go there, please. And it's about raising awareness, as I was saying. And the second one is a Build for People partnership under Horizon Europe, which is super important in my point of view, because we need more resources, we need more research, and this will be a way to achieve that. So this is 2 promises that we have for the future, and I'm super happy to have your feedback and to be connected with you and to discuss about that. That's it on my side. I would like to thank you very much for all the connection and the discussion we had on this topic and through the community. Now that's going to be the turn of my colleague Miroslav Smolka, who is our technical director, to introduce the second bestseller we have dedicated to the comparative study of national fire safety and requirements. I wish you a good afternoon.
Sorry, Miroslav, we cannot hear you.
Hello, good afternoon. So I hope
Yes,
I can be seen and heard.
perfect.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I leave you.
Okay, great. So about the project of comparative study of national fire safety requirements, it's one of them, I would say, also long-term projects of Fire Safe Europe. And thank you very much, Rodolphe, for introduction. The only thing I can say about myself, about the basic facts, that I've been active in the fire safety testing, classifications, approvals, and public affairs for more than 20 years, is the fact that I've been part of Fire Safe Europe from the very inception until now. It was an interesting and very exciting journey. Thank you, thank you for that. So coming back to the topic of the presentation, what I would like to show you is a couple of facts. What we've been trying to achieve with the diverse regulation and how to compare them. So we try to do is to identify key trends across Europe for high-rise residential buildings, hospitals, and schools. I will show you a couple overview of questions and also analysis of selected findings. Not all of them, because it's a really plenty of data and we cannot capture it all in 10 minutes. What was the objective of the study? We wanted to present the data and provide insights into into different country requirements, into the three building types I mentioned. Why we chose the specific building types? First of all, and maybe the only reason is that to make this activity and this project at all possible, because you know that regulations differ in principle in European countries. So to make a specific comparison possible, we had to focus on three specific building types, and not only on the types itself of the buildings, but we were more specific. We specified what is the high-rise building, how does it look like. So we decided to pick out the building that would be considered a high-rise building in all European countries. So it's 15 floors, 45 meters in total. Ground area is 2,200 square meters, so it's quite large building. 17 apartments of each floor, and location in a building is in the city with 3 kilometers nearest fire station. By the way, this location was the same for all the building types that we chose to compare. With the hospital, the definition was that it's an 8-story building with a basement, 35 meters in total, ground area 10,000 square meters, 1,000 beds, and basically the same location as before. With the school, the building is quite smaller, but still quite large. It's 5 floors plus basement, 600 square meter, and 300 pupils in this building. Regarding the history of this project, it started, as I said, a couple of years ago. In 2014, we had our Fire Safe Europe study where we tried to compare 10 countries. This was the number of countries that we worked with at the time. And there was also a scientific paper written and presented by one of the moderators, by Birgitte, in this forum. And then in 2020, we decided to proceed with this project and to make it open through the fire safety community. The work has been going on through this year. So now we have selected, now we have compiled all the data, and until the end of this year, it is the plan to have a complete summary study summarizing all these three building types. Maybe this project will continue in next years. It also depends on you and your activity and your inputs there. Regarding the methodology, what we try to do is that European fire safety community provided data from approximately 20 countries. The sample of countries was not exactly the same in each study, but it was about 20 countries in each of these three studies, with most countries being the same, but there were some differences, of course. Some countries provided more than one answer. And how we dealt with that, of course, we were happy to see that the answers are the same. And if this is not the case, we try to find a compromise answer. And if the answers were different, we reported both answers. And in some cases, we try to clarify with the people providing the answer what is actually the reality behind these differences. Regarding the questions in this study, I'm not going to show you all these questions. I just want to say that there were 24 questions in the survey, and they fell basically into a couple of categories: fire resistance of the building structure, of the compartment walls, reaction to fire for the structure, for the wall, ceiling, floor linings, pipes, cables, external exposure to roofs and facades, various types of facades. I will show you a couple of graphs later. Escape routes, number of escape routes, distance to escape routes, protection from smoke of the escape routes, surfaces reaction to fire, and other areas like the use of sprinklers, furniture, fire compartment size, and fire safety engineering design of the building. Regarding the replies provided us with direct comparisons of the regulations between the regulations of different countries. Sometimes a range of classes were reported with some background rationale behind, so it was also very interesting to see. In some cases, we simply got an array of classifications of different source. This was, for example, the case of the external exposure to roofs, where due to the lack of harmonization in Europe, we have 4 possible classifications. We also have reaction to fire classes possible for these products. So in these cases, it was virtually impossible to find a common denominator for it. So let me show you a couple of examples. As I told you, it's not possible to give you all the details. But if you look at how specific parameter can be addressed differently in building types, let me show you, for example, the example of mandatory sprinkler systems in escape routes. So as you can see, it's quite different. It's only 1/4 of the countries that requires that in high-rise buildings, where it's a lot more in a hospital, and also 1/4 of countries require mandatory sprinklers in escape routes in schools. In some instances, we could find even bigger differences. For example, when we ask about the protection of escape routes from smoke spread, we learned that almost all the countries giving the answers indicated that for the high-rise buildings, escape routes must be free of smoke using some kind of technical means. You can imagine what can be behind, either mechanical structure or pressurization of these systems, of these escape routes. It was quite less in hospitals, and for the schools, it was only approximately half of the countries that require protection of escape routes from smoke. Of course, we could try to find the reasons behind. We can go only as far as the data allow us to do so that we have. But it's also an interesting, I would say, topic for the next discussion, why we see such differences. Let me show you another example, which is the maximum size of the fire compartments. And in this case, I chose schools because we got the biggest differences here. The range is quite huge. It's from 600 to 32,000 square meters. We also saw quite big differences in other building types, but not so huge as here for schools. And you can see a similar picture when I show you the maximum distance to escape routes. For example, for a high-rise residence, we can see up to 200 meters in one country. You can see also some ranges for particular countries. It was because this could depend on other parameters, like the use of sprinklers, for example. But here, most countries reported something between 20 to 40 meters, and the differences were not so huge for other building types. Another example is fire resistance. You can see maximum fire resistance, and here I'm showing you all the data that we have for high-rise buildings, hospitals, and schools. This is the example where you don't see too big differences. It's basically ranging from 1 to 2 hours fire resistance, with schools giving some smaller values, probably also to the type of occupancy, but also to the fact that the building is a bit smaller than the other two. So these are the example where we can see some alignment between the countries. And let me go quickly through the reaction to fire and external wall insulation and systems. So for example, for high-rise residential buildings, we can see that the most typical classification is A2. And then the higher or the worse classes are less, I would say, allowed throughout Europe. And you can see also differences between different technologies, between cavity walls, ventilated facades, and ethics systems, rendered facades. If you look at hospitals, A2 classification prevails as well. But what I find surprising is that approximately 1/4 of European countries have no requirements at all for external fire spread on facades in these building types. And if we look at schools, then we can see that it's quite a lot of schools that have no requirement, but otherwise we can see that A2 and B categories classes are also the most often used ones. Let me go quickly through the rest of the presentation because we are coming close to the session in 2 minutes. So here you can see the picture for the wall and ceiling linings. So for high-rise and schools, you can see different requirements for escape routes and for the rest of the building, whereas in hospital, it's much more uniform. And this is an example where we got almost the same answers, very similar for all building types, designed using fire safety engineering tools and occupancies, where in 3/4 of the countries approximately, or two-thirds, sorry, it was allowed to use FSC with some advices behind the comments, some sort of control over the process, need to prove equivalence, and use, I would say, careful or robust approach. Maybe it's time for a quick survey now. Can we open the poll now? Yeah, I would like to ask you one question, and you have 4 answers. Which degree of harmonization for fire safety of building regulations would you suggest? So you have 4 options to answer, and please indicate your preference. So the option 1 is basically the status quo, having common technical language, the common set of European classes. Each country is allowed to do whatever they like. Option 2 is share best practices. For example, fire information exchange platform can be a good example of this. Now, option 3, harmonized parameters for specific building types that European citizens use across Europe, like hotels, hospitals, for example, public buildings. And option 4 is a template master fire safety code for Europe for all buildings. So let me wait a while until we see all the people answering. We have more than 100 people. And maybe now it's time to publish the results. Yeah, so I can see that the majority is for the option 3, harmonized regulated parameters for certain building types. So thank you very much for this. It's time to stop this presentation and also to stop this plenary session. And may I invite you to sessions 1 and 2. Can you please return to the lobby and enter the rooms from there? So thank you very much, and see you soon in other sessions.